Thando channel viewers from wherever you are joining us from across our beautiful continent. Welcome to our December edition of Closer Perspective. I am your host, Sapi Bachi, and today I am having our end of year conversation with the salesman. I mean, my guest today, who's a really good friend of mine, I tell you, can sell ice to an Eskimo. And I really, really mean it. I've seen him in action. He calls himself the salesman. I'm sure you've all seen Diaries of a Salesman. Bongani Chinkanda, welcome. And I'm so happy that we found time as everyone is winding down the year to be able to sit down and have a conversation, man. It's really fantastic to see you.
Yeah, man, Sapi, thanks a lot. I think it's way, way overdue.
It's way overdue.
You exaggerate about the Eskimo part, but I try and I try to add value to our clients and anybody who we tend to have growth conversations with. So thank you for having me,
Absolutely.
and good evening to everybody in Thando. And
Thank you.
geez, man, you yourself, I remember this dream. We started it in COVID, and
Yes.
it's lasted. So well done, well
Thank
done.
you
It's been
so
like
much.
really,
Thank you
yeah,
so
yeah,
much. It's I think Africa is ready to hear stories from other Africans, and
yes,
I'm so grateful that we have been on this journey for as far as we
mm,
have and have had a lot of firsts this year. So I'm really grateful to everybody who has shared the journey with us and shared the vision and has been supporting us throughout our journey so far. It's really been exciting. But today is not about us. It's really about you and your
yeah,
value addition. I think it's an opportune time at the end of the year to kind of talk to someone of your caliber and with what you stand for. I've seen you've grown a lot of your personal brand around your own personal experience with depression. You've become a really big advocate of mental health, and we're going to touch a lot on that. But before I delve into all of that, I want to tell our audience just a little bit about you. Born and raised in Malawi, schooled in Harare, Zimbabwe. So we've got this love affair that he did, spend some time in Zimbabwe, in
yeah.
Harare, and completed a degree at Rhodes University in Grahamstown. Bongani is a strong believer in solving client business problems, specializing in the youth and mass markets, and is passionate about bringing big ideas to the people. He has a passion for developing entrepreneurs and leaders in the creative economy. Bongani worked in trade and shopper marketing for companies like the Unilever Group, BP, Kraft, Kimberly, just to mention a few, from 2003 until 2008, before embarking in a career in advertising. He founded Dzuwa Media in 2008. I'm sure I'll bring him back some memories here, Bongani, to
Yeah.
serve as a promotional goods supplier in the Malawian and the Zambian markets, growing into brand activation agency space with a mass market focus that included work in Namibia, in Botswana, and in South Africa in 2010. And their blue chip clients included SAB, Colgate, and the Hollard insurance business. Then in 2016, they merged with Stretch Marketing, now Elevator, to further extend their middle and mass market offering. He then left to join HDI Youth Marketers in 2017, and Mongani's dream of African brand stories was reignited with the growth of HDI's collective across the continent of Africa. And this passion has led to HDI expanding its presence into two more markets, Zimbabwe included, and Ghana, adding Nigeria, Kenya, Ethiopia, and Uganda. So this man has a heart and a passion for Africa. Then in 2010, after leaving HDI, he joined the Brave Group, and his partners formed Bravado, which is a mass market advertising agency. And he is currently managing director and a shareholder in that business. And in his spare time, he loves to read, he loves to swim. And of course, we know for those of you who follow Bongani on Instagram, we know that he's got a passion for mountain biking and creating new experiences to share with his three sons. And this is you in a nutshell, but it doesn't even touch
Sounds
the surface.
sounds like I'm
Are
in
you like
literally.
surprised hearing all of these things? Like,
I'm
Is
like,
that me?
Jesus, it's like 2 minutes of this. But yeah, no, it is me.
And you're like, is this what I've done? And you look back and is this what
Mm,
I've managed to accomplish? Because you've
yeah.
done quite a lot and accomplished so much. And I wanted to start, man, our conversation on the mountain biking.
Yes.
And your focus and your passion for mental health, which obviously stemmed from your own experience and having been an overcomer. And you've shared your story widely, and it's added, I think, a lot of value to a lot of people. Because in our community, man, as Black people, the word depression does not exist. Mental health, we think, is witchcraft. So it's
Yes.
not anything that we talk about, but you went through it,
Yeah.
survived it, and have come out stronger on the other side. And I remember your post when you shared you were going to do the backup buddy ride,
Yeah.
160 kilometers. You said, I'm putting my money where my mouth was. What ignited the start of that journey and mountain
Sure.
biking?
Yes. So it has to do with exercise and mental health. So
Mhm.
when I was depressed and I tried to commit suicide, I guess we'll get to that later. I ended up in hospital in a psychiatric unit for 3 weeks, and one of the things that they said helps with mental health recovery is and healing is you always need to move and you always need to exercise at least 5 times a week for about an hour. So I started running, and in COVID, I injured my right hip. And then a mate of mine in Malawi said, "Why don't you try cycling?" So I had this bike in my garage that was 20. And I started cycling 10 kilometers. Then I went home to Malawi and he introduced me. So I always say there's a difference between cycling and riding. So
Right.
we
Tell us.
ride,
Tell us.
right? So we ride. So we serious. We take our cycling very seriously. We ride, and in 2021, with mates of mine, we cycled from Blantyre to the lake in Mangochi, which was about
Mhm.
210 kilometers over 3 days. And coming out of that, I said, but why am I doing this? Like, I can just be riding and enjoying myself and being selfish about recovery and all that. Because for me, I wanted to test how far my body can go. Because when I
Right.
was depressed, I couldn't even walk for 2 kilometers, right? So you can imagine from not walking 2 kilometers to riding at 210 kilometers, and all we had, no support vehicles, nothing. We just like
It
with
was
our
just you and the
bags
bikes.
and the bikes, right? Then I came back and then I said, let me challenge myself for this year, which was 2022, and set myself a goal. So the furthest I'd ridden in one activity was 110 kilometers as part of that 3 day ride. I was like, no, it's fine. I found a race which was 160 kilometers from Hartisport Dam here in South Africa to Sun City. It's called Race to the Sun. So I then created, being the marketing person that I am,
Of
and the
course.
salesperson that I am, I decided to create this thing called 160 in 160. So 160,000 in 160 kilometers, which was quite an ambitious goal, right? Um, I didn't make, I managed to finish the race over 9 hours, I think it was.
Sure.
Toughest thing I've ever done. He encouraged me all the way because I needed to do it to raise awareness for mental health. But we managed to raise 42,000 Rand. And trust me, raising
Wow.
42,000 Rand is not a joke, right?
No, it is
So,
not. I
no, no,
know
no, no,
about
no. And
fundraising. I know about
especially
capital
when
raising.
people, exactly, so by people giving it to you, and so you'd get 500 Rand, 1,000 Rand, and a mate of mine from Uganda gave me 5,000 Rand, which is quite appreciated. So, so what I've decided to do is that every year I'm going to give myself a stretch goal to raise awareness around mental health, especially in men, Black men especially, because when you look at, I mean, just to mention popular guys, Double HP, Patrick Shai, who was an actor, Ricky Rick,
Ricky
um,
Rick.
who all committed suicide because they were struggling with mental health and depression was around how do we encourage these conversations, right? And I know people say, no, our partners don't let us vent and all that. And I think that's there, but I think it's important that we as men have these conversations. We can't always outsource our problems to what our partners or our mothers are doing and not doing. So for me, it's
Must be
about
accountable. That's good.
yeah, it's about having these conversations in these spaces with different people. So for next year, with a friend of mine who got me into mountain biking, Alex, we've entered a race in April. We'll be racing from the Drakensberg and racing to the sea. So it's called Sunny to Sea. And we're cycling for 265 kilometers over 3 days. So we're going to start
Whoa.
training in January. What this does for me, it firstly gives me a level of focus. But when I don't cycle for about maybe maximum, if I'm not tired, about 4 days, I start feeling anxious and just agitated because I know what cycling does. It really, when I tell people that cycling makes me happy, you have got
Yeah,
no idea what cycling does for me because it's I almost feel that I'm one with myself, I'm
right.
one with nature, and I'm one with God. Um,
Wow. Okay.
and I haven't attended church for a long time, and my mother always says, "Stop cycling on Sunday and go to church." That's a story for another day. But for me, it just gives me that level of being centered. I'm able to solve the most complex personal business problems, and I get to motivate people while I'm doing
Wow.
it.
So I'm going to double back, Bongani. When
Yeah.
you did the first one with Alex, when he challenged you and
Yes.
you did Blantyre Mangochi,
Yes.
um, were you fit? Had you been exercising? Had you done
Yeah.
anything specifically then to kind of get your
Yeah.
body ready? Or did you just like, hey, guys,
Yes.
let's launch into it because it's going to be over
No,
3 days?
you can't. You will not have made it. So I didn't really have a training program, but I was doing a lot of riding and a lot of swimming to get my body conditioned to go for a long time. And then for the second one, I got into a bit of a training program where you get guided by, in the digital world, you've got apps that guide you
Mhm.
in terms of how your heart rate should be.
Yeah.
I'm training a bit, but feeling a bit fatigued from the year. But from the 9th of January, we're doing a 16-week program where we're riding on average about 10 hours a week in riding. Now, when you hear 10 hours a week in riding, we're not professional cyclists. So
Yes.
we have to find you're averaging about 2 hours a day, 5 days a week to cycle. And on weekends, you're training about 2 hours on a Saturday or 3 hours on a Saturday and 5 hours on a Sunday. So the level of
Wow.
dedication that you give to this thing, and it's not that you're
It's
going to win the
real.
race, but yeah, you just don't want to. I mean, I am very, like right now, there's this picture behind me and I'm trying to center myself. So I'm like almost a perfectionist. So I don't want to do this
Yes.
thing and I bail out on day two, right? Or
Right.
day
No, you
one
got to
because I'm
finish what you
tired.
start.
I have to finish what I started because people are inspired and encouraged by one taking brave decisions and brave feats to make sure that you're bringing awareness to this deadly disease.
So now, Bongani, you mentioned that when you are cycling, you are happiest, you solve complex business problems, you are one with God. Do you talk to yourself? What is happening in your mind when you are going through the
Yeah.
motions, you know? Because I mean, me obviously are just watching and we seeing people just grab
Mm.
water and you're thinking, God,
Yes,
it's so
yes.
hot. What are you
Yeah.
saying? What conversations are you having?
So on a normal training day, so I leave home like mostly Sundays is my best day that I like going out. So I'll leave home maybe around 6 in the morning or 5 in the morning and go to a place, park my car. There's a lot of riding areas in Johannesburg. Then I'm just on my bike. I'm cycling. I'm speaking to myself. I'm thinking about the week ahead, the week that has passed, the challenges that I'm facing. And there are times where I feel like a kid. So maybe I take a nice turn or I do a nice stunt and I laugh. with myself, and just coming back tired from it. I get into my car, buy myself breakfast, and sometimes I do it with my friends. I like doing it alone because I think it's just my time. But now and again, I
Yes.
ride with my friends. I think when you're doing the long rides, I remember our first day, so the one in Malawi, our first day was great. No, I remember being dropped off my dad to Alex's house. I was so scared. I've never been so scared in my life. Like, what am
Wow.
I doing? Like, what the hell did I just decide to do? And I think social media holds me accountable because if I wasn't posting and making a big noise about what I'm gonna do, I'd be like, I mean, I'll think of you. I'm like, Sappy's like sent me a message encouraging me, and now if she sees I bailed out, she's like, this guy, you know. So then I was scared, and my dad was dropping me. I was so quiet. I felt like a kid who was being naughty, right?
Mm.
I felt like I was a kid who was being naughty. Like my mother was so scared. She prayed and like, God, look after this. So first day was great. We cycled. The second day was also nice. It was short. The last day we were in the Rift Valley, right? So it was very, very hot. And
Mm.
and we were cycling for like 120 kilometers. And it got to a point where we're cycling in villages and stopping at water wells and stuff. It was great. I mean, like away from like the normal Santon skylines and stuff.
Mm.
And we it there was a point where all you could hear was the bikes because we were all just tired,
Tired.
and all we wanted to do was get to where we were going. And in that moment, you have got no idea when people tell you that um get your mind over and your body follows. It's a real thing and it applies to everything, right? Once your
I like
mind
that.
sees it, once your mind sees you being healed, winning, making money, everything, your body and everything else follows, right?
Wow,
So
that is
so
so nice.
so
Deep.
you can imagine like you're sitting on this little chair and your bum is hurting for like 6 hours straight, and all
Mm.
you're saying to yourself is, I'm gonna get to the end, right?
Yes.
And there's a point where you're repeating yourself, I'm gonna get to the end, I'm gonna finish, and then your friends are like, are you good? I'm like, I'm okay. You asking them, are you good? No, we're good, we're okay. So what it does, and I always talk about how your mind, you need to get your mind addicted to success. And the thing about your brain,
Mm.
it doesn't understand the difference between making $1 million or finishing a three day cycle tour with your friends. It's just the
Mm.
high that your brain gets used to. So if you want to make $1 million, start winning in other areas. So that's how I do it.
Mm.
So when we finished,
Nice
I've never
nuggets.
been so happy. I've never been like, when I saw the lake finally, because we cycled and like we were getting towards
You're
the
like,
lake and we could see
yes.
it. We're like, oh my God, oh my God. And we're like so happy. And for me, that was what it was all about. It was like challenging my body to do the most intense thing that you can ever decide to do. And I encourage people to do it. I don't say get into mountain biking, but just have a goal that you're going to like physically. And I think the physical part is the greatest part. Like physically, where you look back and think, did I just do that? Right?
Mm.
Was that me? Like, because and especially as we get older, we become people who are just satisfied with the mundane and the things
Yeah.
that are safe, right? And you ask yourself, and you're like, geez, did I just finish 210 kilometers? Like, is that
Mm.
me? Right? And at night I couldn't sleep because now I was imagining and all these memories, and because you're cycling through a lot of villages, and there's just a lot of stuff that's going, right? Um, there's a lot of stuff that's just going. So when we finished, you like, did I just do that? Was that me? I was very emotional because there was a time where my life felt hopeless. I couldn't
Mm.
get into this dark place. And here I was, I'd finished 210 kilometers over 3 days, supported by ourselves. So no support vehicle. If we had, thank God we didn't have any mechanical issues with the bikes. But if we had had any mechanical issues, we needed to fix it out. I mean, this is Malawi, like deep in the
Yeah.
villages, right? So it wasn't even on
Yeah.
main roads. And for me, those are the things that excite me and give me joy now.
I love, Bongani, as you were sharing your story, that you said that if you condition your mind to see success, your body will follow. Because I mean, the biblical principle is if you see it, as far as your eyes can see, as
Exactly.
far as you can
Right.
imagine, you can achieve it. So it's really
100%.
about seeing it so clearly and creating
Mhm.
that clarity in your mind, then it will
Yeah.
follow. It will come to pass.
I always say the things we don't have are the things we refuse to imagine.
Wow. Oh my God. Please, you must do a post about that. I like that.
And it's true because
Nice.
I'll use an example. This year, I wanted a new bicycle because I've always had secondhand bicycles. And what I did was I found a specific bicycle, and I put it as a screensaver on my phone. And everything that I did, everything, fighting for my salary increase, everything that I did was leading me to buying this new bicycle, which I did. And and and
Nice.
I think for me, it's we're just lazy to imagine, but
Mhm.
also it's the fear of what if it doesn't happen. And if it doesn't happen,
Exactly.
it's fine, right? At least you gave it your best shot. um
Absolutely.
so for me, again, I encourage people to look physically and say to yourself, what if I walked 50 kilometers? Like,
Mm.
what if I just decided I'm gonna walk 50 kilometers over 4 days? I don't know how long it's gonna take you. Um, and we sit sometimes on the couch and look at. I mean, a friend of mine did the comrades. Before COVID, he was training for it, and COVID happened, so the comrades didn't happen. And he did it this year, 3 years later. But he managed to run 90 kilometers. I cannot envision running 90 kilometers. It's painful. But he did it and he survived. And for him, it was something like, did I just do that? Like, like when he woke up the next day, like if you want an out of body experience, test yourself physically. You will wake up and you be in a hotel room, sleeping and looking at yourself. I'm like, this is me. It's
I
funny. Like,
just
but you're
did
like,
this.
I just did this.
Wow, that's really
Mm,
amazing. And I love the principle in it. And I love what you say that, and it's so true that I think one of our greatest fears as human beings, doesn't matter who you are, is that fear of failure. And you
yeah,
just have to face it
yeah,
because, they say fear is false evidence appearing real, right? So it's
100%.
like facing it and holding that conversation with yourself
Mm,
and pushing through because you
mm,
come out through on the other side and you've done
100%.
it,
Yeah,
more often than
yeah.
not, you've done it. So
Mm,
just leading up to so you've done the 160K, you've raised your 40 plus 1,000 rand, which was an incredible amount. It was your
mm,
first time. And I think
yes,
the credibility and then obviously passing those funds on. I think one of the things with us people is you kind of think, is that money gonna go where it's supposed to go, etc. And I
yes,
just think you following it through is amazing. So
yeah,
excited that you set the second goal and that you'll be
yeah,
doing something next year in April, again for the mental
yes.
health aspect. I saw a post that you did, Bongani, and it was with time comes experience. And then with experience comes credibility. And
Mm,
it's really about the entrepreneurial journey. And you've
yes.
been on that journey. And you
Mm,
say, and as I was reading the caption, you say, dude, you've got to fall and get dust on your face. Like you just have to go through that process. So what did you mean when you were writing this? I mean, I want to unpack it a little bit because I found
yeah.
it quite deep. And right now you're already talking about
Mm,
experience,
mm,
talking about how when you were depressed, you couldn't even walk two
mm,
Ks,
mm,
but now you're cycling 120
mm,
Ks and pushing for even more. Mm.
yeah. I think we live in a community, we live in a society, and I think as it gets worse, and maybe as I get older, I believe that we are living in a world where um, accessing things is very easy, right? We are able to download streaming services. We're able to do a whole lot of things easily because that's what life presents itself. So we are success comes with pain. you know, to able to ride 265 kilometers, your body, you need to break your body and rebuild it. It's just the physical part of it. Like you break your muscles and you rebuild them. You break your muscles and you rebuild them to get to a point where you are then able to achieve that feat. You can't be I can't just get up now and ride 265 kilometers without my body going through the pain. So with entrepreneurship, it's the same thing, is that you have to go through painful experiences, losing clients, a business failing, for you to learn for the next round of entrepreneurship. But what we do is we instead of managing pain, we try and avoid it. So it's two things. We need to manage pain. You can't avoid it. So managing pain on the bicycle, an example, is to get to 265 kilometers, your body needs to get used to 20 kilometers, to 30 kilometers, to 45, to 150, and then you get to 265, right? Because you're managing pain. The pain will be there. It's not going to be easy when we ride in April, but we can't avoid it and just pitch up on the day and say, "Hi guys, I'm here. I'm gonna ride," right?
You need to be
You
prepared,
can't,
yeah.
right? So when I say that with time, with time comes experience, and with experience comes credibility, is that even clients want to see you put in the time and experience. Only then can you be credible and speak about growing businesses and taking on things. And it's funny thing, because some of my clients share it, is that when they see me putting out to say I'm going to do this and end up achieving it, it will probably, for them, they look at to say, if he says he's going to do something for us, he's probably going to do it as well, because this is a person that keeps his word to himself.
Himself.
And it's important that that's the first person that you keep your word to say, I'm going to be
100%.
successful, right? And I think most of us we can't even keep the word to ourselves. We say, I mean, it happens to me sometimes because I'm tired, but we're like, I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week next year, and January comes, first week you're doing it, second week, it's not nice. So then you stop, and then and what I've learned, and I'm not saying I've got it perfect in every way or form, because I'm still fighting my battle with food is terrible. I like desserts, and I'm trying my best. One day I'll get it right. But
It's okay to spoil yourself a little.
exactly. So it's not. I don't want the pain of not stopping to eat dessert. Hence, I always go back to my old terrible ways. So you have to manage pain, because with pain comes the achievements. So when I say that, is that even entrepreneurship journey is, you're gonna make mistakes. Some mistakes are public, some mistakes are private, some mistakes are catastrophic where you lose everything. Some mistakes are not that catastrophic, but still build you. So an example would be now with teams is, we've learned when we started out, the mistakes we used to make is, sorry, I was on mute. Some people still do it, or come on
And we
camera,
still
you're not, like, so we learned quite a lot and made mistakes over COVID. This conversation, we never thought about it like we could speak to, we needed to be in person. I would have flown to Harare and all that, but we've learned, and it's given us that credibility to have these conversations. So we need to always, the point I'm driving at is, we need to be at a place where never avoid pain for the goals you've said you're going to, for the things that you want in life.
You need to endure, right? This
You
is
need to
part of the
endure, you need to
endurance.
manage the pain and get to the other side. Because only, and I think it's just the principle. I mean, I know there's Christians on the call watching, and you're also a Christian, is that when you think about Jesus Christ, he had to die and go through the pain to save Christians, right? It was never going to happen without it, I mean, like, he's a child of God. He would have just clicked the finger and say, everybody's saved, everybody's coming home, and he had to go through it. And all the great leaders over time, Nelson Mandela had to go through pain. And the funny thing about is talking about leaders, and the one thing that's frustrating me is what's happening on the African continent, is that the current leaders don't want to feel pain to succeed. So what they'll do is they'll do shortcuts and end up all of us in load shedding, because somebody doesn't want to face the pain of sorting these things out. So it's important that we always have that perspective,
Absolutely.
as entrepreneurs. Yeah.
100%. You have to break your body and rebuild it, break it and rebuild it to get to the conditioning that is required. And when you face it, you come out on the other side and you realize, actually, I'm alive. And also, I really liked what you said, that it's very important that you keep, the most important word to keep is to yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be credible. If you cannot be credible with your own self, do know what you're going to do with anybody else.
That's
Like,
it.
absolutely not. Yeah. Then you go on to say, Bongani, in this story, you encourage entrepreneurs to not treat their ventures as babies, because it's very difficult to kill a baby. So as an entrepreneur, when do you know to say, Aish, this I've got to kill this because it's not working? Like, when is the time to throw in the towel? Because I mean, with entrepreneurs by nature, you're like, I can make a plan. When is enough enough?
So I have stopped believing, and I used to be one, and it led me in proper problems where my business failed and I ended up in huge debts, is that you have to keep at it until it happens. I think there's a place where all of us know that. I use the example of those who drink. There's that one drink that you know that if I drink this one, it's downhill from here. Like psychologically inside you, you know that maybe it's time to go home, you know? And with business, it's the same thing. Intuitively, there's your time, you know that I need to close this. However, there's a counterintuitive part that says, I need to be resilient. I don't need to give up. I've seen people
Yes.
do these things. I've
Yes, I
done it.
must break
I'm a
it, build,
hustler.
break it, build.
I'm this. I look at yourself, and there were times where we had conversations, and you're like, Bongani, Zimbabwe, it's so hard. And if I could pack up and go elsewhere, I'm gonna go. And the conversation we ask is, are the opportunities still there? Can you still trade? Are there still clients and all these things? And somehow we managed to roll it over, and here you are. But sometimes there isn't that. When you do all the analysis and you have, like I always say, when you sit in the middle of the night, before you even pray to God, because sometimes we escape in prayer, before you pray, you need to have a proper analysis of where your business position is. And that is why I once was sitting with a young lady and she says, but it's my baby, I can't give it up. I was like, it's not your baby. It's like a car. Like it's like my bike. It's gonna get old and rusted, and I might want to sell it and give it up and buy a new one or stop riding. I'm not going to be clinging on to this bike until I go to bed, because I believe a business is an asset. You need to look at it in that way. If it's giving you pain, if it's not giving you joy, if it's giving you all these things at a consistent level, then it's time to walk away. I'm not saying leave entrepreneurship, but walk away from that specific thing, because I always say we were not born to pay school fees and die, right? And I think many entrepreneurs believe that suffering is about entrepreneurship. No, entrepreneurship is about running successful businesses that are profitable and give you a dividend, right? Running successful businesses that are profitable and give you a dividend. If you're not getting that from your business, maybe it's time to close
Is
it.
there a time
Yes.
frame? You talk about intuition and, at some, but is there a time frame that one, in your experience,
Yeah.
obviously, that one should kind of give yourself? Because, some people will tell you, look, in the first 3 years, you're building, especially if it's greenfield, year 4 and 5. So is there a time frame that you must, okay, so in the next X amount, this is how long I'm giving this opportunity a chance to?
Yeah. I think it depends industry by industry. So sometimes you're starting a whole new thing, it's innovation, no one knows it, and you truly believe it. So when you think about Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, Facebook guys, because everybody likes to use those big guys. You have to hang it in there for a very long time. And if you've got patient investors and they're investing in your business, but if we bring it back home, most of the businesses that we do are to feed our families. It's not about building conglomerates, and it's just about daily survival. And I think for me, and I think myself as an example, when you see the pain on your family and that things are getting worse than they were, I think it's time to call it.
I hear you.
Because sometimes it creates resentment, it creates all sorts of things in relationships and in your environment that you're not happy. And you, the guy, no, I'm gonna get up and asking and men we the worst because our spouses keep giving us money to follow our dreams, and we keep getting money and say, I'll pay you back one day but we know it's not gonna work. We know you're not
Eish.
gonna pay back that money. We know, and you know, and I'm telling you now, you know, if you're
You
listening now,
know.
you know that you're not gonna pay back that money. Because I've
Eish.
been there. I would get money from a relative, and I knew the thing was falling apart. But it becomes actually, we can have this conversation another day. Debt is like a drug, it's addictive. So you hustle, I'll borrow from Sapi 50,000 Rand, I'll pay Sapi there, because what you're doing is you're feeding this dream of yours now with debt, right? And you're keeping your ego going, but you know you're not going to pay it. You now can't attend braais because you're embarrassed of that uncle who lent you money and he's going to ask for it. Now there's tension. Your wife reminds you of the salaries she's been paying for the whole year. Close it.
Wow. Bad debt is a drug.
It
You get
totally is.
addicted to it.
Bad
Ish.
debt is a drug.
Dude, you've been dropping nuggets this whole conversation. Bad debt is a drug.
It is.
That's so insightful and so true. I mean, there's
Yeah.
good debt and then there's
And
bad
it's
debt,
bad
and it's
debt.
addictive.
And it's addictive.
Wow, wow. So now that we are at the end of the year, Bongani, I've seen you kind of start sharing and having in your spaces, just sharing about maybe there's certain things that I haven't achieved, and now we're getting towards the end of the year. And I know you were talking around this as we're just coming out of the last month being men's health month, and you were just talking around that. So now we're getting to the end of the year. As we wind the conversation down, what takeaways can our audience take in terms of reconciling and reflecting on the year? You do it on the road there,
Yeah.
and also just resetting yourself and getting ready for 2023.
Yeah. I think an eternal truth for me is it's something that Zig Ziglar always used to say, and if you listen to his recordings, you always hear him say, failure is an event and not a person. And when you start having that perspective, is then looking back, is what are the things that I failed this year, right? And why did I fail them? And how do I do better? So what do I need to start doing? What do I need to stop doing? And what do I need to continue doing, right? To get you to where you need to. So for me, that's how I reflect. And then there's a pressure to, I think the calendar year gives us sort of a start and end point, but there's some goals that you don't need a start and end point. So there isn't pressure to say, I mean, my business that I'm running now, 2.5 years in, I want to grow and be one of the big agencies, but I shouldn't feel bad about it because we've grown from the previous year, right? And we're chatting about dividends before we got onto the call.
Yes,
I'm hoping to get dividends, even if it's just 1 rand. For me, it will be 1 rand less than I didn't, 1 rand more than I didn't get this year.
absolutely.
And it's important to always have perspective in terms of where you are in your journey as an entrepreneur. Um, and obviously have those weekly, monthly, yearly goals, but always make sure that there's this growth line that's just growing. Don't look for spikes. Again, remember about breaking your body. So even with our training, the way that the training works is that you start off slowly and you increase every week. And even it's advised that when you're doing any exercise, every week you increase by just 10%, right? Because if you increase by more, you might get injured. And sometimes, yes, great, big deal comes in. I'm not saying walk away from it, but don't overlook the incremental steps, the incremental successes that have happened over the year. And laugh at yourself,
Yeah.
laugh at yourself. There's a story I tell. We missed a flight from Cape Town with a client, and we drove from Cape Town
Yo.
because we had to come back to Joburg. And we sit and laugh about it now because it was what happened. We could have beaten ourselves about it. I could have felt bad and all these things and whatever, but there were no flights, and I needed to come back to Joburg to take my kids for holiday, and they were not having me not coming the next day or the day after.
They did
It
not
was,
get that. They were
Papa,
not
see you tomorrow
interested.
morning. And we drove for 18 hours, listened to music, laughed, joked, all these things, and arrived in Joburg. So that's, for me, those are the things you sit and laugh about, because those are the entrepreneurial stories that you end up telling later on.
Absolutely. So I love the idea of being patient and the incremental, because what we should never aim for is stagnation. We should always say, I was at A, now I'm at B. And even if it's just I'm at A plus plus, moving on to B, that's okay. At least there is that movement, like you're saying. And I think sometimes spikes, although they're great when they come, can almost be a little bit unreal,
100%.
So it's better to take those incremental, because those are what is sustained, and what you want is sustainability. And I think it was also quite insightful to say there's some goals that are done within 12 months, and there's some that are set over a longer period of time. So you're just checking, so where am I in this first 12 months? So what is the next step? And you're always kind of looking forward. Yeah. Fantastic. I've enjoyed the conversation, and time was always going to be the enemy, because whenever we sit with a salesman, there's always so many nuggets. Like you've dropped like 4 or 5 in this conversation that I'm thinking, those are tweetable, hashtagable, and everything. Bongani, it's been fantastic. Wishing you a fantastic holiday with the family. You said you guys are going away, so enjoy your break, and here's to an even better and stronger 2023. Thando viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a blessed Christmas, whatever you're doing. Stay safe, and here's to a good 2023. Bongani, thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Api.